Who you gonna call? If you didn't answer that, then where have you been for the last 40 years? Even the freaking doctor knows who to call.
Who are you gonna call?
Ghostbusting!
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Okay, I'm joking a bit, but it is difficult to find somebody who has no idea what Ghostbusters even is. Even today, the 1984 classic is regarded as a must-watch for anyone who appreciates comedy.
Egon, this reminds me of the time you tried to drill a hole through your head. You remember that?
That would have worked if you hadn't stopped me.
Horror, and special effects that mostly still hold up 4 decades on. Of course, there's also the famous song by Ray Parker Jr.
Something strange in your neighborhood.
I'd love to play more, but YouTube has a hard-on for copyrighted material. From the movie's successful debut, it spawned a cartoon series that ran for 5 years and 7 seasons, toys, cereal, a flawed but enjoyable sequel, its own high C flavor, a sequel cartoon series, and even real-life fan franchises worldwide. Seriously, these folks have made replicas for all the gear, movie and cartoon, and some of them even made their own movies. What about that other movie? We don't talk about 2016. As a fan growing up in the early 2000s, there was unfortunately a serious Ghostbusters drought. Talks of a potential Ghostbusters 3 were in development hell since the mid-90s. It seemed extremely unlikely to happen, so I was only left with the original movies and the older video games. Oh yeah, this is mainly a video game channel, right? Of course, we all now know about the crappy NES games and the decent Sega Genesis game, but for at least 2 gaming generations, there was no busting to be had. That all changed when in January 2007, a blurry video and images of a new Ghostbusters game appeared online from a company called Zootfly. In it, we saw a new Ectomobile and the Ghostbusters in some serious heavy gear. The blurry video also showed the new Ecto driving in some empty streets, followed by gameplay footage where the player, as a Ghostbuster, captured ghosts using the new proton cannon. It also demonstrated the destructive power of the new pack, damaging some of the nearby buildings. Unfortunately, Zootfly did not have the legal rights to create a Ghostbusters game, but the hype over this footage prompted Sony to reveal that, indeed, a new Ghostbusters game was on the way. All 4 of the main Ghostbusters were returning to lend their likenesses and voice their characters, even Annie Potts as Janine. The story was to pick up 2 years after the events of Ghostbusters 2, and a script worked on by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, who'd written the first 2 movies. Better yet, there was going to be 3 different versions. A realistic version for the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, and PC, a cartoony stylized version for the Wii and the PlayStation 2, and a separate handheld version for the Nintendo DS. Wait, a new PS2 game? In 2009? Yes! On June 16th, 2009, 25 years after the release of the original film, the game was finally released. You better believe that I picked up both versions. Welcome back to Video Game Life Support, where I compare cross-generational releases to see which generation got the better game. After I take you through a brief review of both versions, I'll decide whether the older console, by merits of the released game, should pull the plug, be sustained, or be discharged. Well, I thought in honor of the upcoming come back! Recent release of the newest Ghostbusters movie, I'd be looking at Ghostbusters the video game on the PlayStation 2 and the PlayStation 3. Last time I looked at a PS2 game on this show, I actually gave it the edge over its next-gen version. That game came out in 2008 though. 1 year later, can the aging PS2 still push on against its successor? Let's find out. Now normally, I'd dive right into the older version first, but this game is extremely story-driven. After all, it was being advertised as the 3rd movie that players could actually play through, so I'll be drifting through the plot first. If you'd like to avoid spoilers, click this timestamp here. Otherwise, here we go. 2 years after the Ghostbusters defeated Vigo the Carpathian, around Thanksgiving 1991, a major psionic wave floods through New York from the museum. You join the Ghostbusters as a nameless rookie.
What's your name again, kid?
No names, Ray. I don't want to get too attached to this kid. You know, just in case. You remember what happened to the last guy.
As an experimental equipment technician.
He's our new experimental equipment technician.
He gets a cool title, too?
It means he gets to carry around a bunch of untested, extremely dangerous hardware that, if not handled correctly, could blow him somewhere into New Jersey.
Oh, this knucklehead lugs around our very dangerous prototype hardware that could potentially blow us into New Jersey. Thanks. Keep the title, kid. It'll work hard for you.
In short, the proton pack is getting upgraded throughout the game, and you get the goods first. The pulse from the museum drives to the firehouse, and before the guys can fully understand what's going on, Slimer escapes and returns to the Sedgwick Hotel from the first movie. On arrival, you and the Ghostbusters discover that more ghosts are popping up. After you trap Slimer with Venkman and take care of another boss ghost with the others, you discover that the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man has returned to New York.
Wasn't me this time, I swear it.
You, Ray, and Venkman scale a building and save Dr. Alyssa Selwyn. She's the guest curator at the museum who is leading the new Gozerian exhibit. Coincidence? I think not. You make it to the roof and knock off Stay Puft, but the rookie is knocked off the building.
Hey, did somebody tell you it was break time?
No sweat, kid, we've got you.
Well, you end up getting volunteered to finish the big sailor. After Stay Puft has been reduced to marshmallow cream, all the Ghostbusters return with Alyssa to the firehouse to interview and run tests on her. During the initial questioning, the Ghostbusters are visited by the new mayor, Jock Mulligan, who is played by Bill Murray's brother, Brian Doyle Murray, and a returning Walter Peck. Yep, old Dickless is back here, but he's been made the head of a new department.
Anyway, after all the damage you've been causing lately, the city council wants you under close supervision for a period of no less than 6 months.
We file reports on time. There's no need for extra supervision.
Funny guy, Venkman. You've always been my favorite. Well, that's where your old friend Peck comes in. He's annoying, a stickler for the rules. In other words, the perfect Peck for the job. He's our new head of Peacock.
Peacock? PCOC, Paranormal Contracts Oversight Commission. And my first official act is going to be suspending you clowns' operating license.
Lighten up, Peck. Launch your investigation if you have to, but for now just keep them under control and my office in the loop. But remember, if the Ghostbusters cease to exist, so does your job. So you need each other. Beautiful in an ironic, symmetrical kind of way, isn't it?
The following day, the Ghostbusters get a call back to the New York Public Library to bust the Grey Lady, the librarian ghost from the first movie, as well as 2 rummers. They also discover that the library is overrun with the paranormal, and the spook running it is the ghostly incarnation of the man who killed the Grey Lady, Edmund Hoover. It turned out that he used the Grey Lady to get the Gozerian Codex. Upon retrieval of the book, the Rookie, Ray, and Egon are taken to the ghost world through a dimensional portal by Hoover, who has now become Azlator, the Collector. After he's toast, the Ghostbusters return to their original dimension, where Egon finds a strange shape on the wall called a mandala, where a lighted node burns out. The team discovers that this mandala acts as a spiritual energy conduit to force the ghost world to cross over into the real world. 2 other nodes are shut down over the next 2 levels, as well as other boss ghosts, the chairman at the museum and the spider witch at the Sedgwick Hotel, where you really get to see the effects of the crossover. Back at the firehouse, the Ghostbusters compare the Mandela nodes with a map of New York to discover that the library, the Sedgwick Hotel, and the museum all line up with nodes of the mandala, which account for all but the final node, located in the middle of the Hudson River. Using Marine Ecto 8, the Ghostbusters find a rising landmass, Shandor Island. The island where Ivo Shandor, he was the guy who built Dana's building from the first movie,
Everybody getting this so far?
held meetings for his cult.
Let me guess. Gozer worshippers. Right.
It's also discovered that Shandor was responsible for the pink slime in the tunnels in the second movie.
This is all looking a little familiar. Ray would be giggling right now. This must be where all the mood slime came from. Look, they must have pumped it straight into the sewers from here.
On a wall, they find a portrait of a woman who resembles Alyssa and find out that she's a descendant of Ivo Shandor.
Wait. What? Alyssa is a Shandor?
Why does this always happen to me? I meet a girl, she's crazy about me, but she always turns out to be some kind of unbelievable fixer-upper.
This is all making sense. Alyssa must have inadvertently triggered the mandala because she has Shandor blood.
And she doesn't know it. When I did her profile, she told me she was adopted.
Some coincidence, huh?
You don't really believe this happened by accident?
No. Someone must have known and set this up.
The mayor did say that Peck personally recommended Alyssa to be the guest curator of the Gozer exhibit.
Once a Peck, always a Peck.
As they go deeper into the island, all but the Rookie are captured. leaving him to rescue them all by himself. Once freed, the Ghostbusters fight the final guardian, a juvenile slore.
Then, during the third reconciliation of the last of the McKettrick supplicants, they chose a new form for him, that of a giant slore. Many Shubs and Zools knew what it was to be roasted in the depths of the slore that day, I can tell you.
Once it goes down, Shandor Island goes down with it, and the Mandela is shut down for good.
How was it? Was it cool? What did it look like? Did you get any samples? Did it have multiple eyes?
Shut up.
Upon returning to the firehouse, they find it a mess, and Janine dazed, Alyssa gone, and the containment unit shut down once again. All the energy from the captured ghosts is funneled into Central Park, transforming it into a massive graveyard, a mausoleum, and a temple. After fighting through everything thrown at them in several difficult battles, the Ghostbusters find Alyssa and Peck, as well as the mayor?
It's the mayor.
No, Ray, it's not. It's Ivo Shandor.
Shandor possessed the mayor, turned Peck on us to slow us down, and when we shut down his Mandela before he could get fully juiced, he hijacked our ghost out of the containment unit as an alternate energy source.
Very good. And they say you're the slow one.
Wait, what? Who says that?
Everybody. What's the girl have to do with it?
Taking her was necessary. To assume my own destructor form, I require blood. My blood.
What about Gozer? I thought you built this all for him.
I did, but he failed me. Twice. How he earned the title The Destroyer is beyond me. Anyway, I thought to myself, why worship a god when you can actually become one?
Slime him.
The Ghostbusters successfully wrangle him into a portal to the ghost world, but they are pulled in with him. This time, Shandor comes back, but in his destructor form, the Architect.
The Architect? That's not so scary. The Contractor, that's who kills you.
After one more fight, the Ghostbusters once more cross the streams.
We eat gods for breakfast. I'm deactivating the cross-stream governor. I never thought I'd say this again. Cross the
We eat gods for breakfast?
Too much, you think?
No, I liked it.
New York is saved, and for all of his hard work, the rookie is given a Ghostbusters franchise of his own in Chicago. For me and a lot of fans, this was the true Ghostbusters 3. It was a fun romp with the original cast that not only tied together the original movies, but wrapped up the Shandor storyline rather neatly. The fact that the original writers had a hand in it really helped legitimize the story. Still with me? Good. For those of you who skipped, hey, welcome back. Let's get on with the comparison, starting with the PS2 version. This stylized version of the game was developed by Redfly Studio, but the PS2 version was converted by Wardrum Studio. I can't really vouch for Redfly's other games as I haven't played them. Apparently they made the Mushroom Men series on the Wii, as well as the Wii's version of Star Wars The Force Unleashed 2. Maybe you can get some idea of what's in store if you've played those. As for Wardrum Studios, now known as Grove Street Games, they seem to be a company that mainly deals in ports, with the PS2 Ghostbusters being their first bit of work. Afterwards, they would work on the Android and iOS ports of the PS2 GTA games. Suddenly, I don't have a good feeling about this. Let's go ahead and discuss how this game plays. Ghostbusters the video game on PS2 is a third-person action game with some emphasis on the puzzle-solving elements. You can actually choose if you'd like to play as the male rookie or a female rookie, although if you choose her, the guys will still call you he.
He's our new experimental equipment technician.
He gets a cool title, too?
Throughout the campaign, you'll zap, cap, and trap ghosts and other paranormal baddies alongside the veterans. Levels are broken up into smaller chapters, even if the area is a hallway to another part of the building, like the Return to Sedgwick chapter, for example. At the end of each level, you'll get a screen that totals the cost of the damage that you cause with a catchphrase that really doesn't amount to much in-game. Really, there's nothing to be earned from causing too much or too little damage in each stage. Almost makes you wonder what the point of this was. There are also counters for possible scans and pages of Tobin's Spirit Guide you can find hidden in the stages. There are rewards for doing this, however. Let me explain. Throughout the story, you are asked to bring out your PKE meter. When you bring the cursor over a character, ghost, or paranormal anomaly, your cursor will change into a target. If this is a brand new scan for you, the target goes green. Once the target is lined up, you hold down R2 and you have to keep the target on it to complete the scan. This is easier said than done. Like I said, you have to keep on target. If the ghost moves, or you can't follow it, you'll have to start the scan all over again. Completing a scan is beneficial because it can fill you in on a ghost's weakness, what to use, or what strategy to follow. I'll elaborate more on that problem when I discuss controls for this version. As for the pages, they're basically hidden in every nook and cranny in the level. My advice? Just blast everything, eventually you'll find it. Let's discuss controls. Movement is handled by the left stick. The D-pad just changes the proton pack's modes. The right stick will not only move the camera, but that's all you're going to get for aiming as well. In the middle of the screen, at all times, is your reticule. What shape it takes depends on whether you're using the PKE meter or the neutrino one. R2 fires the primary function of whatever mode of proton pack you're on, while the L2 button fires the secondary function. As for face buttons, the X button is your action button. You use it to talk to interactable characters, start events, or pick up your trap. The square button will clear slime off of your character, and will also be used to revive knockdown allies. In this version, getting slime makes you slower. If it's harmful black slime, it whittles down your health until you clear it off, so it's best to clear that stuff off as soon as possible. While in the levels, not only are you out in the line of fire, but your fellow Ghostbusters are as well. If one of them goes down, it's up to you, or another NPC Ghostbuster, to help them up. They'll be doing the same for you as well, so it's best to have the entire team on their feet. Where was I? Oh yeah, controls. The triangle button pulls out your PKE meter. While you have the PKE out, pressing R2 will have you scan, as I mentioned before, but if you hold L2, you'll put on the ecto goggles, called paragoggles in game. The goggles are great for if you get lost, because while wearing them, you'll see a ghostly vapor trail in most cases that will lead you to where you need to go. The goggles also let you see hidden passageways, paths, and things that can be interacted with while using your equipment. While writing this script, after I played through the game, I learned that the O button is a lock-on button for this version. Well, that would have been great to know in-game. I did say that you could aim with the right stick, but the major issue is its sensitivity. Just one slight movement, and now I'm aiming for the other side of the room, away from the ghost. It's even worse when you're trying to scan the ghost for the guide. They move around so much, and trying to realign the target is like trying to catch a bat with a crane. Remember, if you lose the scan in the middle of a scan, you'll have to start that scan all over. You can edit the sensitivity in the options menu, but I feel like this shouldn't have been a problem to begin with. I should probably also note that for this playthrough, I didn't use an official DualShock 2 controller. Those are a little hard to come by where I am, so I was stuck with this third-party controller by TTX. If anyone's played it with the real DualShock and I'm wrong, feel free to let me know. The start button pauses the game, of course, and the select button pulls up the spirit guide for you. But as for the L1 and R1 buttons,
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
The basics of ghostbusting in this version are as follows. You go into a room with ghosts, using your proton stream or other setting that the ghost is weak to, so you can weaken the ghost's energy, represented by a horizontal bar with green dots. Once they're in the reticule changes, arrows appear around the ghosts, and now your stream goes from damaging to wrangling. Once you grab onto the ghost, a sort of Simon Says game initiates. A directional arrow will appear on the ghost, telling you which direction to flick the right stick. If you follow the instructions, you'll slam the ghost in that direction, weakening it further. If you don't, you'll have to try again until the ghost breaks free. You'll have to slam every catchable ghost 3 times to trap them. The final turn always gives you the option of where to slam them. Once the ghost is dazed, you'll have to bring the ghost to a trap that you threw out or one of the others threw out. The game will help guide the ghost as long as you're bringing it in the general direction. I did run into some trouble with trapping at times on the PS2 version. I would sometimes bring a weakened ghost over and nothing would happen. It was like the game totally forgot what was going on. Sometimes, after the ghost would stay in the trap's beam for like a minute or so, the game would suddenly remember what was going on and the ghost would be trapped. This is a major issue because if you don't trap the ghost after slamming it, it'll regain its strength and you'll have to slam it all over again. Fun, right? Boss ghost battles in this version focus more on figuring out the creature's patterns and weaknesses. You may have to yank off a part of the ghost or make it vulnerable by using a specific type of mode on the proton pack. They aren't too difficult. Heck, if you scan the ghost, most of the time the game will outright tell you what you have to do. These can be fun with some exclusive battles in this version. Like, in the museum, for example, you'll fight a T-Rex skeleton. Most of them, however, can just be repetitive. Once you figure out what you must do, you basically just repeat that until the boss is done for. Now, if this wasn't apparent by my footage, this game is basically just a port of the Wii version. This wasn't uncommon in this time after all. The Wii was almost like a slightly more powerful PS2 with motion control, in my opinion. I have no idea how powerful a console is or the technical specs on each. The large reticules, the sloppy sensitivity, and the need for precise shots are all tailored for motion control. And playing this, I feel like in their conversion, Wardrum Studios were just more concerned with it just running on the old hardware, and not whether it was fun or functional. Don't believe me about the shoddiness of this port? Let me tell you some of the issues I ran into during my play sessions. Loading times are abysmal here. As I've stated before, sections of the game are broken up into bite-sized levels, and in between these are loading screens. Now the art in them is pretty nice, even if some of the details are lost, but the problem here is how long they are. Here, let me play a whole loading screen for you. I'll even provide a timer in the corner.
How long is this going to take? Come on! Quality fucking time, sweetheart!
Some of the levels are even shorter, so in the campaign, you can really come to a level, bust ghosts, load into the next area, do it again, but have to sit through another loading screen, as the Ghostbusters decide that they want to backtrack. Speaking of loading, you can also come across areas that fail to load in, making you walk into a void until the game realizes where you are and has to catch up. This is not good for a late-release PS2 game. There are also glitchy cutscenes where characters fail to animate. Look at Walter Peck in this scene.
But our getting stiffed on invites to opening night, just an oversight, right?
But I don't have anything to do with that.
No. Hello, gentlemen. No, that was all me. And I assure you, it was not an oversight.
Oh, by the way, you have visitors.
He has no facial animations at all. Everyone else is working as intended. Did they not play this game this far to see this issue? This isn't even that far. This is literally the scene after you fight Stay Puft, who is the first major boss you fight in this version. The damning evidence here, however, is the freezing and crashing I experienced while playing this one.
Well, this looks like the Gozerian configuration.
If this happens, you'll have to reset or turn off the PlayStation 2, power it back on, skip through the opening credits, load up your file, go to Ecto 1, load the level, and start from the beginning of it again. No, there aren't any checkpoints in this version. The absolute worst instance came near the end of the game in the corrupted Central Park. In this version, there are puzzles in almost every area of it, like matching the dancing skeletons that just comes out of nowhere. This is the level where the game crashed the most. Sometimes at the beginning. Sometimes later in the level. Remember, if I had to restart the PS2, I'd have to go through that entire rigmarole just to get back to the beginning of the level to do all of that again. I'm not gonna lie, after the third time this happened, I was considering just stopping playing the game here, but I decided to persevere and beat it. Just for you. And look, I don't like being petty, but I've got one more complaint. Look at the rookie's logo on his right sleeve. It's backwards. I could probably excuse it if the other Ghostbusters had this problem, but look, it's correct on them. Look at the rookie's arm. The logo is a separate texture. You can even see the boundaries around it. I hate to bring in the Wii version again, as I'm trying to just focus on the PS2 version. But another selling point that was dropped from this version was the co-op. To be fair, the box didn't advertise it, But on Wii, you and a friend can go through the story mode together. Not in the PS2 version, but again, to be fair, this version barely plays a single player. I imagine the poor PS2 would just explode trying to play co-op. Have I missed anything? Well, as I said earlier, there are unlockables for scanning, like increasing your durability, scanning speeds, and faster cooldown periods. There's also Ghost Zarian costume that makes you invincible, but you'll have to beat the game on the hardest difficulty to get it. No thanks. I guess the best thing I can say about this one is it's playable. I do remember that at the time this game came out, the stores were only selling it brand new for $20. That should have tipped me off right away that something was amiss, but hey, give me a break. I was a dumb teenager at the time. I think any more that I've got to say about Ghostbusters on PlayStation 2 can wait until the comparison. So let's see what the PS3 version brought to the table. Around the time of its release, it was made quite apparent that the next-gen version of this game was the main focus in summer 2009. It was getting the most hype after all. I don't remember a single interview about the stylized version, whereas most gaming websites at the time had a nice press release about this more realistic version, even featuring 3 out of the 4 Ghostbusters. Guess which one wouldn't go for an interview? I'm not here to talk about the hype though. I'm here to talk about the game itself. This version was developed by Terminal Reality. Who are they, you might be asking? Well, prior to making Ghostbusters, they developed the Blood Rain games and Spy Hunter, Nowhere to Run. Games I've heard of, but never played. Okay, so what did they make after Ghostbusters then? Let's just focus on Ghostbusters, shall we? As you can see, this one tried to go more for an attempt at playing through a movie. Too bad 2009 wasn't exactly the year that we escaped the Uncanny Valley. In fact, we're still in it. Although there was some real effort to make the main 4 resemble how the actors looked in 1991, the facial animations and body movements can be a tad robotic and can ragdoll if they get launched or attacked. The effects, however, are immaculate. Look, that is a proton stream. The ghosts really do match the style established in the first 2 movies as well. Sure, you've got Slimer and Stay Puft, but look at some of the original ghosts you'll be facing here. You've got Hobo Ghosts, Construction Worker Ghosts, Dark Cultist Ghosts, and we're not even talking about the fodder that gets thrown your way. The lighting is really emphasized as well. In darker areas, you can see the light glowing from your equipment and from any glowing specters. It can also set the correct mood. Like, look at this area in the Return to Cedric level. For context, this is where the ghost world is starting to corrupt our world. Little to no lighting, distorted hallways, and a chilling lack of sound do well to present the spooky setting this game goes for. Visually, this game nails it, but what about the gameplay? Well, the basics from the PS2 version carry over here, but as it runs on stronger hardware, I feel like more was put into this version to really make you feel like a Ghostbuster. The HUD elements here are all displayed on the right side of your pack. I'll just let Ray take over from here.
Everything you need to know is displayed on the pack itself. Here's where you keep an eye on your current physical condition. The more green that's on the bar, the more damage you can sustain and still stay on your feet. This bar indicates your pack's heat level. When it gets to the top, you'll want to vent the pack and keep it from shorting out and resetting.
Thank you, Dr. Stantz. What he didn't mention is that the game will help you know when you're in trouble and need to take cover. When the edges of the screen go red and blurry, you're close to getting knocked down. I'll speak about what happens when you're down in the comparison section. You can also see the ghost health on not only the top of the pack, but your target reticule will display it as well. When it's green, there's more blasting to do. When it's red, it's time to wrangle the ghost or destroy it. The main aspect to nailing a Ghostbusters game, in my opinion, would be the proton pack itself. I can't remember exactly, but I've read somewhere that the proton stream is akin to a fire hose on full blast. It should be conveyed as powerful, destructive, and a bit out of control. Terminal Reality nailed it here. From the first time you use it in this game.
No, not the containment unit. That's some highly sensitive equipment you're disintegrating there, kid.
You really do feel like you're firing the unlicensed nuclear accelerator we all know and love. You can really cause some damage to the environments you visit, normal or ghostly. The controls in this version are pretty well done as well. You move with the left stick, of course, and aim with the right stick. Like the PS2 version, you'll fire the primary mode of the pack by pressing R2, and the secondary mode with L2. Unlike the PS2 version, L1 and R1 have functions here. You use L1 to activate the capture stream, while R1 will manually vent the pack. No more just waiting around, you just use that, and after a second, you're good to go again. What's more, the X button is your main interaction button. The square button will throw out a trap, but the O button gets a godsend of a feature. If you tap that button with a direction, you'll quickly dodge in the direction that you're holding. If you hold down the button while moving, you'll you'll begin to sprint. You can only do this for maybe about 4 or 5 seconds before the rookie gets winded though. You can also bring up the PKE meter by pressing the triangle button. In this version, the PKE meter is always used in tandem with the paragoggles. This version of the PKE is more intuitive to use. The bars in the middle will line up with whatever direction it's leading you. They're also color-coded for what signal you're getting. If it's green, it's a normal ghost or basically where you need to go to investigate. Red indicates a hidden ghost, and blue picks up a hidden ghostly artifact, each with its own, sometimes humorous story. Like, let's look at the Swiss death clock, for example. According to the in-game text, this clock tells a person when they're gonna pass. The description also states that Venkman, Bill Murray's character, uses it as a desk fan at the firehouse as it's near so many souls. You can also use the PKE for scanning as well, obviously, right? Some instances of scanning are strictly for story purposes. In other words, you can't move on until you activate an event by scanning something.
Wow, dig that.
Ray, I'm not entirely convinced this is the best course of action.
Hey, I'll bet this is a trap.
Welcome back, Ray.
As for the other controls, the D-pad does the same thing here, just changing your Proton Pack's modes. Start pauses and brings up your menus, and the select button can bring up newly scanned entities or open up the upgrade menu when you can afford an upgrade to your gear after catching so many ghosts. You can also hold R3, or the right stick, to see where your teammates are. Very helpful when things get a little hairy. As for the gameplay, the basics are still the same, but with more powerful hardware. The levels are more interconnected, with maybe a cutscene hiding the loading times, and more dynamic scenes and levels that were just not possible on the opposite version systems. For example, once Stay Puft reappears on PS2, you get a funny cutscene of Ray, Peter, and the rookie entering a nearby building to head off the big sailor. Here on the PS3, you actually get to chase Stay Puft on foot while fighting off the marshmallow minions he generates as well as some other ghosts.
Keep away from those feet. He'll stomp you into jelly.
In case you are curious, that's true. People have already done the homework and concluded that the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man would weigh around 1,200 tons. Yes, tons. Of course, for this version, you can earn trophies. You get many of them from just playing the game and beating it on different difficulty levels, but others are achieved by doing miscellaneous tasks. Most of them reference the 1984 classic like,
Now look at the trap, Ray!
That you can earn after picking up your full trap 20 times. One of the more quirky ones you can earn is called Ghostbusters Drinking Game, that you get for using a drinking fountain at every opportunity you can. I was unable to get this on this playthrough because for no reason at all, the game crashed. When it did that, of course, I reset the game, but when I reloaded my file, I was in the next level, skipping any opportunity to get a sip of the drinking fountain in the firehouse. And no, you can't reload any of the firehouse segments. If I wanted to get this, I would have to start an entirely new playthrough, and since I was this far, I wasn't going to do that. The PS3 version only crashed once, and I have no idea why, but it's nowhere near as bad as the PS2 version. Alright, tangent over. Let's get back to this version's gameplay. Ghostbusting is practically the same in this version, so I won't go into too much detail. The major differences in this version is how wrangling and slamming is handled. After you've whittled down a ghost's health, you'll automatically, or can manually, activate the capture stream. Once you've got the ghost, it becomes almost like a supernatural rodeo. The ghost will try to resist and pull away from you, but if you pull in the opposite direction, you'll build up a slam meter. Once you get at least one orange indicator lit up, you can press the L2 button with a direction to slam it in that direction. When you can get 4 consecutive slams, it can feel pretty satisfying. The other Ghostbusters will comment if you start to go crazy with it though.
They felt that one in Pittsburgh.
You play hardball, right?
You will still have to drag the ghost into a trap and pull it in, but if you buy the slam trap upgrade from the store, you can just slam a ghost right into the trap. I recommend buying this as soon as you can. Additionally, you can actually cross the streams in this version. Don't worry, you won't destroy the world by doing so, but you will get knocked back and take a lot of damage. In-universe, the Ghostbusters installed a safety feature that prevents any accidental crossing. You'll also get warnings if you're crossing any streams from the other Ghostbusters, so be careful.
You don't want to do that now.
How many times do I have to say it? Don't cross the stream.
Another thing this version brings to the table is a mobile store for upgrading your kit. Pretty advanced for 1991 if you ask me, but I digress. Every ghost you capture or destroy will net you some cash that you can use to get some upgrades. There are moments of letting you choose which upgrade to get if you have enough cash. Otherwise, you can just go with what you can afford. You can't, however, buy upgrades for the proton pack modes you haven't unlocked. For example, you can't upgrade the slime blower until you're given it in the middle of the library level. I wouldn't sweat worrying about what to upgrade and when. I've played this version plenty of times, and each time, by the end, I've had all the purchases. There is a lot more to cover in this version, but I feel it's best to discuss that in the comparison. So which version of Ghostbusters the video game was better? Which game really shined for its console? And most importantly, which one really made bustin' feel good? Let's find out. With the differences in visual styles, gameplay, and exclusives, where do I begin? How about the main playable character, the rookie? Or should that be rookies? As I stated earlier, in the PS3 version, you only get to play as this guy who was based off of Ryan French, the executive producer at Sierra at the time. Oh yeah, I haven't mentioned them yet. Sierra had a hand in this game's development. French actually lobbied to play the rookie and got the gig. On the PlayStation 2 version, you get to pick to play as a male rookie or a female rookie. I have no idea if anyone's likeness was used for inspiration here. Now I know that the rookie is mostly silent in both games. I think the idea was for the player to sort of create the rookie's personality and attitudes in their own heads, although both games have a different way of handling that. On the PlayStation 2 version, any movement done by the rookie in cutscenes is completely first person, which makes some interactions with Venkman pretty awkward if you're the female rookie.
Careful, it's a prototype. We're trusting you with it.
He's talking about you. Okay?
Not just to the cadet, Venkman.
Any third-person view of the rookie in the in-game cutscenes will have the rookie just hanging out in the background, completely tuned out from whatever is occurring in front of him or her. There aren't even any facial animations for the characters, so I guess the slate's totally clear for player interpretation here. On the PlayStation 3 version, the rookie will actually react and interact with the other Ghostbusters in cutscenes. He even gets facial reactions and non-verbal communications that suggest that he's more of a normal guy who's just game to go on this crazy adventure with the Ghostbusters. He will give a small scream here and there, but he normally gets cut off by the others, usually Venkman, before he can really say anything. Personally, I prefer this iteration of the rookie. It really helps convey the extra character needed in this story, and gives something for the other characters to play off of, acting-wise. The gameplay loop in both versions are basically the exact same. You'll start in the firehouse for a scene, talk about where you need to go, get to the Ecto-1, go through a section of the game like the library or museum, then return to the firehouse to start the loop again. I feel like both versions handle this aspect just fine, although I will admit that the PlayStation 2 version makes its run between firehouse visits feel longer with the constant loading, well, and the multiple levels. On the PlayStation 3 version, the longer levels are treated more like movie scenes. You'd go from your action to a cutscene to action, and those cutscenes hide the loading times, which really helps the flow. So if we're talking about gameplay flow, then I've got to give it to the PlayStation 3 version. What about the firehouse itself? Let's begin with the PlayStation 2 version. The main room of the firehouse has been translated as it should be. We've got the Ecto-1 located up front by the doors, the lockers to the left of the car, Janine's desk front and center, the offices in the back, and the poles on either side. What's been added here is sort of a study cage for Slimer. In the back corner and down two staircases is a small room basement with a small containment unit and... Vigo the Carpathian? If you press the X button while targeting him, you'll get some new dialogue from him.
I see the evil of the times to come. You will remember paying $1.45 for gas, and will weep hot tears for yesterday.
From the main floor and up two sets of stairs is the Ghostbusters lab, where you can use the TV to replay levels, or use the filing cabinet to play the credits. This is also where most of the scenes in the firehouse will take place. You'll need to run up here and press X in the action circle, or logo I guess, but press X to activate the next scene. On the PlayStation 3 version, I feel like more effort was put into the firehouse to make it feel, well, alive. All the things from the PlayStation 2 version are here as far as the main hall is concerned, but if you look near the lockers, you can find Louis Tully's desk. Louis Tully was played by Rick Moranis in the first two movies, and joined the team after their court case in Ghostbusters 2, even suiting up at the end.
Boy, this equipment's heavy.
Yes, I'm a nerd, I know. Let's move on. You can see that he got to keep the suit he wore, as well as a sick note on his desk, explaining his absence. Vigo is also here, near Janine's desk for some reason.
Keep walking. Go on.
I wonder if he chats to Janine sometimes. If you hang out by Janine's desk, you can hear some of her calls.
Hello, Ghostbusters. Oh, you don't know the half of it. They have been racing in and out of here since that shockwave hit. How would I know? I'm just here trying to keep the lights on. Sure, I could ask what's going on, but then they might actually tell me. What? Yeah, I'd say it's pretty big. That schnook from the city isn't helping ease the tension either. Anyway, going away for Thanksgiving might be on hold until things settle down. Yeah, I know. But we have to roll the Ghostbusters way. Don't ask. All right. Goodbye.
If you go upstairs in this version, you can find even more fun things. The dancing toaster from Ghostbusters 2? Check. A computer with the infamous ending screen from the old NES game? Check. Work and shower? Check. There's even an answering machine that you can check between levels to see New York's reactions to your shenanigans.
Yeah, I was wondering, is it safe to eat all this marshmallow goop that's covering my balcony? And as a follow-up question, what if I already did? Professor Jones, trying to find out information on the whereabouts of the Vigo painting. Do you have any idea what's happened to it? It's a priceless historical treasure. It belongs in a museum.
You can also see that, yes, the Ghostbusters still live in the firehouse. Of course, you can't forget the pole either. You even get an achievement for going down it. The fun doesn't stop there either. If you're eagle-eyed, you can see a crayon drawing to Uncle Egon from an Ed Spengler. If you didn't know, this is a reference to two Ghostbuster fan films, Freddy vs. Ghostbusters and Return of the Ghostbusters. The basement even has some of the cartoon show's gear, with a real Ghostbusters PKE meter and an extreme Ghostbusters trap on the workbench. If this wasn't a labor of love from fans, then I don't know what is. The PS3's version of the firehouse blows its previous gen's version out of the water, no contest. How about the visuals? What really caught everyone's attention with the two versions of this game was the totally different visual styles. This was done for necessity, as the Wii and PS2 couldn't handle the type of graphics that the flagship version was dishing out. To make up for the lack of graphical fidelity, the Wii and PS2 got the cartoony look. This stylized look was strange to me at first. I mean, look at the Ghostbusters themselves. Egon is tall and pencil thin, while Ray is short, stout, and squat. I can see the resemblance to Harold Ramis in this Egon's face, but it took some getting used to for the game to convince me that this was supposed to be Dan Aykroyd. I don't have much to say about Venkman and Winston's designs because look at them. They're just basic translations of Bill Murray and Ernie Hudson to the cartoony style. Although, come to think of it, Venkman looks a little drunk here, doesn't he? And what's with hippie chick Janine here? Of course, the realistic version did the best as they could for 2009. I remember when the game came out, I thought the models looked great. But looking back now, they kind of look, I don't know the right term, clay-like? They also move a little stiffly in-game. Don't get me wrong, these are incredibly detailed. They even got Dan Aykroyd's heterochromia, that's both eyes being the different color, on his Ray model. Comparing the Ghostbusters themselves? I give it to both. Let's take a look at the environments. In the PlayStation 2 version, all the levels fit right in with the cartoony style, but unfortunately in doing so, it seems to lose any semblance of lighting, and with that, the atmosphere. That's not to say that this version doesn't achieve any terrifying feelings, but let's compare the museum's basement areas from PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3. You had to activate the power after fighting some ghosts in both versions, but look at the PS2 version. The area is supposed to be without power, i.e. lights, but there's nothing really here to suggest that's dark. Now obviously, there should be some visibility, but look at the PlayStation 3 version. Need I say more? If you want to keep it to the PlayStation 2 version, it's just as light here as it is in the library during the day. On the PlayStation 3 version, the lighting is much better. I would say that this version can be a little too dark, but there's a slider in the options menu to remedy that. In fact, I did have to do that in this playthrough. It is noticeable that the proton pack's beams will light up any surroundings, which helps the look of this version tremendously. Certain ghosts will light up the areas as well. As for the environments here, the returning areas from the movies look just as if they've been plucked right out of them. Where things really get interesting is when we start to get glimpses of the ghost world. I think the best example would be the Return to Cedric levels. At this part of the story, you and Egon are investigating the 12th floor to try to find another node in the mandala. You two are chasing down the Spider Witch. And true to her name, the halls have been turned into an appropriate domain for her. In the PlayStation 2 version, we can see the twisted hallways, altered lighting, webbed and bent hallways, and more portals. In the PlayStation 3 version, there's almost no lighting, there's still the twisted hallways, and now you get to see webbed up victims. Ugh, creepy. I could go into more detail, like I haven't even discussed the bosses, but this section is long enough as is. I'll just compare the final boss, Ivo Shandor, the architect. Oh yeah, spoiler, sorry. In the PlayStation 2 version, he first takes the form of a demonic monk. Bald, blue, and wearing a red and purple robe with a hood. When you take him through to the other side though, he looks the same. But now he's gone full Nintendo boss. He forms a giant face out of stone and later gains floating hands as well. In the PlayStation 3 version, he begins as a literal ghost of Shandor, but in the ghost world, he almost looks like a depiction of Hades, except made of marble and lava and has horns.
It's all dark and horny at 12 o'clock.
So which one is better? Again, I'd say it all comes down to preference, but for me, Ghostbusters works best when it balances the humor with nerve-wracking horror. So to me, the PlayStation 3 version wins in the visuals. Now let's talk about the gear. After all, what is ghostbusting without the fun toys? I'll be comparing all the modes of the pack. There are 4 different settings in the PS3 version, but only 3 in the PS2. Both versions have the original Proton Stream, Slime Blower, and Stasis Streams. Beginning with the Proton Stream, let's look at the movies first. In both films that were out at the time, we can see that the Proton Stream consists of a wild orange beam with blue lightning dancing all around it. The PS2 depicts it as 2 beams, one orange and one blue. I don't know whether this was a stylistic choice or it was done out of system limitations. I mean, the PSP version did it well, but the PlayStation 3 version has a perfect translation of the movie's Proton Stream. The orange beam is dancing around wildly, and there's that accompanying blue lightning. Oh yeah. The secondary mode here is the boson dart. Basically, it's a larger, stronger, and highly concentrated ball of proton energy that's useful for damaging ghosts harder, or for clearing out large messes.
Boson dart should do the trick. You guys might want to stand back.
How far exactly?
Back. Way.
Do I still have eyebrows?
Samuel. I said way back.
In the PS2 version, you can't fire these alone. You have to be using the proton stream to activate the boson darts. All they are here are just a bright light that travels along the proton stream to its target. In the PS3 version, as you saw in the earlier clip, it kind of resembles a spirit bomb from Dragon Ball Z. It can also be fired by itself or with the stream as well. The Proton Pack's second mode is the Stasis Stream, or Shock Blast. The Shock Blast is basically a ghost-busting shotgun, powerful up close and useful for crowd control. On the PlayStation 3, you can see shots of blue and black light explode out of the neutrino wand. When used as intended, you can really feel like a badass. On PS2 though, did they even put it in effect? The alternative fire on this mode is the Stasis Stream.
The Stasis Stream will temporarily slow down paranormal entities. If you train the stream on the target long enough, you can actually stop it entirely.
This is how you use it.
Cool. A stasis. This has nothing to do with cold, but the effect is similar.
On the PlayStation 2 version, it's just a straight dark blue laser that instantly stops the ghosts. I do like the effect here with the sort of lightning go around them thing going on here though. On the PlayStation 3 version, the beam is still dark blue, but it's sort of wavy and smooth. And not only does it stop its target, but it calcifies them too. Pair that up with a follow with the Shock Blast, and you'll actually blow away parts of this paranormal pests. The third setting on the Proton Pack makes it basically Slime Blower Mark II.
This is the PDS, Plasma Distribution System. Basically, it's Slime Blower Mark II.
That's what I just said. Unlike the second movie, the slime here is green. It's useful for uncovering passages hidden by ghostly shenanigans, making harmful black slime safe, and freeing people and your teammates from possession. In my headcanon, the green slime is a slightly toned down version of the stuff from Ghostbusters 2, well, because...
I love you guys. I love all you guys.
Wait.
And I love Venkman.
Let's go.
Wow.
We gotta live with this?
Real friendship.
Yeah.
On the PS2 version, the slime has a decent range, but it is hefty. It only goes so far before flopping onto the ground. In the PS3 version, it's almost like you're shooting a slime stream instead. You've got a more focused spurt of slime fired with more velocity. It can even break some stuff in levels. As a side note, in both versions, you can also just slime your fellow Ghostbusters. They aren't too thrilled when you do that though.
ectoplasmic residue is by far the least pleasant aspect connected to this field of science.
This is among my least favorite sensations.
The slime blower's second function is where we get our first major deviation of the year between the versions. On PlayStation 3, you get the slime tether. By attaching one end of the tether to another, you can bring the two together. You can use it to solve a few puzzles in this version, but what's really fun to do is to shoot one end of the tether to a ghost and shoot the other end into an open trap. You can get a trophy for it. The PlayStation 2 version gets a slime mine instead. You hold down the L button to charge up a large slime bubble that will explode after it lands wherever you shoot it. And it's mostly used just to cover objects quickly so you can wrangle them. Unlike the tether, its usage is more situational. The final setting for the Proton Pack is exclusive to the next-gen versions, the Meson Collider. The main function launches a powerful bolt that works as a marker for the second function, the Overload Pulse. That one works like a paranormal machine gun. Of course, in both versions, you have the PKE meter, paragoggles, and traps. I believe I've covered those pretty well, so I won't babble on about them, but I will brag about a piece of kit exclusive to the next-gen versions, the Super Slammer Trap. This is an unlimited capacity trap that's built onto the roof of the Ecto-1. You get to play with it on the way to chasing Stay Puft, and man, is it fun! So how do I prefer my ghostbusting? Although the PlayStation 2 version scratches that ghostbusting itch, the PlayStation 3 version makes it feel good. The main flaws in the PS2 version are its sensitivity with the right stick, and the problems the game can have at times remembering what's going on. Well, it could also be my third-party controller, but I feel like I'm leaving something out here. Oh yeah, Proton Pack venting. In game, this is basically your reload. If you fire too much with the Proton Pack, the pack can overheat. And if that does it automatically, then you're going to be waiting for a little bit as an open target. In the PlayStation 2 version, there's no way to control this. You just have to stop firing. In the PlayStation 3 version, you can manually do this. And man, it's a lot quicker, a lot more convenient, and there's another reason why I prefer ghostbusting in PlayStation 3. As for slamming a ghost, well, I don't really care much for the PlayStation 2 version. If I'm going to slam a ghost, it's going to be on my own terms, damn it. I know. That was a lot to get through, but I feel like I'm missing something else. Oh yeah, the multiplayer. Up to at least late 2012, the PlayStation 3 version had a fun co-op online game where you and 3 other players could pick any of the 5 Ghostbusters, well, as well as an exclusive ghoul and even the mayor if you pre-ordered the game from Best Buy, and you worked together to bust as many ghosts as possible within the time limit. There was also a survival mode where you'd be swarmed by onslaughts of the paranormal, and the goal was to see how long you could last. I think there was also a destruction game where you had to destroy evil artifacts as well. Obviously, I wasn't able to get footage for this review, but I was lucky enough to get to play it on my Xbox 360 version. From what I remember, it was pretty fun. There were exclusive first-come, first-served Proton Pack power-ups, as well as energy shields you could get. Well, as I said earlier though, the servers were shut down in December 2012. It should be noted that Ilfon's Ghostbusters Spirit Unleashed took some notes from this game's multiplayer, but still a damn shame it's gone. As for PS2, remember I said there was no multiplayer. Are you paying attention? So how do the games stack against each other? Well, both games are a fun romp with the original Ghostbusters and do an excellent job of immersing the player in that world. The story does a brilliant job of wrapping up the threads from the first 2 movies. However, I can't recommend the PS2 version. The constant crashing, loading, pop-ins, and sloppy controls just weigh this version down. I give Ghostbusters on PlayStation 2 the diagnosis of pull the plug. Now, just because the PS2 version isn't good, does that mean you should skip the stylized version altogether? Absolutely not! I'd recommend that if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you really should play both for the alternate takes and exclusive bosses between the two. Did I mention the black slime T-Rex skeleton boss fight? If you're gonna play the stylized version though, just save yourself the headaches and play the Wii version. Loading times are faster, everything works as intended, and you can play through it co-op. And not a single crash. As I stated, I do prefer the realistic version more for its more immersive take on the property. And some certainly agreed because on October 9th, 2019, a little after a decade from the original's release, this version was re-released as Ghostbusters the Video Game Remastered for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch. This version was advertised with updated visuals and returning multiplayer. I don't know about you, but the visuals look just the same as the original release. As for the multiplayer,
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
the company in charge of the multiplayer, Saber Interactive, stated that they couldn't get the mode to work 2 years after the game was released.
Your mother!
Thanks for nothing, guys. The single-player mode is almost exactly the same as the original release, just with altering the sponsored material. No Doritos for this version, You can actually unlock the pre-order bonuses by beating the campaign on the different difficulties. If you'd like to experience this game on more modern hardware, I'd say go for it. It's not a full-price game either, so it's definitely worth the little you'll spend on it. If you'd like to experience the PlayStation 3 version, however, you're in luck! As appreciation for making it this far in my video, I am giving away this PlayStation 3 copy of Ghostbusters to a lucky winner. All you have to do to enter is like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. Tell me, what is your favorite thing about Ghostbusters? It could be a character, show, actor, movie, whatever you want. 2 weeks after this video's release, I'll pick a winner at random and send an email to him or her. Good luck! I'd also like to give a special thank you to my friend, KeyUnlock, who designed the art for this channel, as well as the excellent thumbnail. She has open spots for commissions and does avatar emotes, character art, and more. I've left a link to her Ko-Fi, is it Ko-Fi? Ko-Fi? Well, I left a link to her page where you can commission her for work. Her rates are some of the best and most affordable I've seen, and you've been seeing her results this whole video. Well, except for the background, that's still mine. If you need any art, why not go support her? You'll be happy you did. Finally, I want to give a huge thank you to you for your support. I don't like to get personal on this channel, but this is really the first full production post-baby, and as any parent will tell you, a huge adjustment. There are plenty more videos in the pipeline, so make sure you hit the bell to stay up to date on what's next. Once again, thank you. I'm Ginger Wolf, you're awesome, and please, don't cross the streams. See you next time!
This is Solid Snake. Thank you for watching Ginger Wolf's video. Ginger Wolf, huh? Huh. Sounds like one of Liquid's men. Liquid! Anyway, if you liked what you saw, hit the like and subscribe buttons, or I'm gonna have to use some CQC on you. And I don't think either of us want that. Snake out.